Morning.
Morning.
Look at the camera, don't look at the laptop. All right.
That wasn't loud enough, that's good.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Sorry, I'll stop.
We're getting there. I want to point out something. If you haven't seen it before, when all this is over, service is over, if you go down the hallway like you usually would to the restroom or the kitchen or something, if you look to your right, there's big glass windows. There's a door to the side of that goes out. You will see a table filled with coffee and high glycemic snacks. And I want to ask you, please come out there outside, safe, no masks, grab a high glycemic snack and some coffee or some hot tea, please. And Liz Goodson has brought some more of her legendary chocolate chip cookies. Very high glycemic, very tasty. All right. Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service, Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta, for May 23rd. Our speaker this morning is Reverend Don Cameron, speaking on the subject of, is our religion, this one, too easy? David?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to those here in the sanctuary, and good morning to those watching on Zoom at home. Today's another special day in that we will have a live hymn singing, and I will sing it, and we hope to have some choir members singing shortly. Our opening hymn is number 347, Gather the Spirit, and the words will be on the screen.
Thank you, David. And now our board member, Tim Hunter, will be giving our announcements this morning. Tim?
Good morning. So the announcements for Sunday, May 23rd are as follows. The youth group will be meeting today online at 6:30. The link is in the e-announcements. The fourth Sunday Vespers will be online today, Sunday at 7. The link is also in the e-announcements. The Portable Book Club will be meeting online on Thursday, May 27th at 7 p.m. Contact Liz Goodson for information. The annual congregation meeting will be held Sunday, June 6th at 1 p.m. as a Zoom meeting. More information will be forthcoming. Please check this week's e-announcements for contact information for these groups and others that you may wish to register for. There is also a link to the UUCA calendar that will let you know the activities of the church throughout the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from Reverend Theodore Parker. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. This morning, a member of our pastoral care team, Jan Parsons, will be receiving our joys and sorrows.
This is the time in our service when we gather to share the joys and sorrows that have come into our lives over this last week. If there are those here in the congregation who have things to share, if you'll be making your way up to this side of the room. Those in Zoom, if you will look for the icon, raise hand, and you will be recognized, and make sure that you are unmuted. And sorrows, we drop the final stone. Keep all of these joys and sorrows in the heart of this community. I'll do an extra one just because I love that we're here without masks.
This is a time in our service where we have a moment of silence together. We'll have a moment of silence for 1 minute. I'll mind the time, beginning and ending. I was going to say something about breathing, but actually when I was standing here looking at everybody, I decided I wanted to say something else because of what this morning reminds me of so much. I think most of you are familiar with bonsai trees. You see them pretty much everywhere, Kroger, you see them in nurseries, they're pretty common. You may not know where they came from. We know they came from Japanese culture. They're very ancient. They were idealized by samurais and by Buddhists because in nature, bonsai trees were junipers or pine trees that they found growing on the edges of a windswept cliff or someplace that was really difficult for anything to grow, and they were growing. Sometimes when you walk down a sidewalk, you see a flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk, blossoming in a crack in the sidewalk where everybody walks. That's the spirit of a bonsai tree. That was what samurais and Buddhists admired about bonsai trees, is they could be in the worst circumstance where all the world was against it, and it would still find a way, because that's what nature does. Nature finds a way. And this morning I'm seeing you without masks, and I'm hearing you singing, some better than others. I don't sing much. And I saw the coffee display outside, which is waiting for all of us to go out and get some coffee and high glycemic carbs in the sunshine. and talk. And when I look at that, it reminds me of the bonsai tree growing on the side of a cliff in wind and rain and not much else. I feel like this church is like that flower growing through the sidewalk, never giving up. And that's something to admire. 1 minute, I'll mind the time. Please have a moment of silence together. This is the moment in our service where we ask you to pour a little water and fertilizer onto our little bonsai tree right here. It's coming back to life, growing through that crack in the sidewalk.
Is it okay? Does it look okay? No, it's not. Sorry, guys. No, this, man. Great, yeah. That's the first time I've seen it angled like this. Sorry, we're adjusting. That reading by Theodore Parker. Theodore Parker was quite the person. He was on the Underground Railroad. He kept a pistol in his desk and he harbored fugitive slaves. He was also known to preach 3 and 4 hours and people would listen. Different time, the 19th century, and religion was in a different place. Let's talk a little bit about our religion today. Is our religion too easy? The people across the street would tell us that. Is it too easy, too inclusive, to be real religion. When I served a church in a Maryland suburb, my colleague, Liz Lerner, who actually replaced me at Providence, but we were in the Washington, D.C. area, and we were in the same ministers group. And she shared an essay, from an academic theological journal. The title, "The Problem with Salad Bowl Religion." The author is an old professor of hers at Harvard Divinity School. And just to let you know, Harvard was always Unitarian, but during my lifetime, we financially let them go, and now we've lost them. Just a little tidbit. So is our salad bowl religion too easy, too inclusive to be real religion? The professor's answer is yes. In terms of mixed marriages, he considers, and I quote, "by far the easiest solution, the addictive one, to include elements of both traditions, giving little or no thought to how they fit together to form any sort of integrated structure." True. A challenge we Unitarian Universalists face today is how to address our religious and cultural diversity more deeply. At our ministers group, Liz Lerner expressed her passion for the Jewish faith, herself being half Jewish. I asked her if she could dig a little deeper for us into Judaism. One thing I learned from her that afternoon really opened my eyes. Hanukkah is more than lighted menorahs and a rededicated temple. And it is certainly not about religious freedom. Were you ready for that? I wasn't. It's exactly what I thought it was. The Hanukkah story is complicated and challenging. It is founded on a legend about the Maccabees, who were zealots as well as heroes. They killed not only their persecutors, but also other Jews who were not courageous enough to die for their faith. They imposed their faith on many when they won dominion over Judea. Does that sound like religious freedom? The oppressed turn oppressive? I never knew Hanukkah was such a mixed bag. But no minister or layperson can explore the world's religions. And I majored in comparative religion, and I'm going to still say this, and I include myself. No minister or layperson can explore the world's religions and know every background, every religion, every heritage deeply and with personal authenticity. The professor's point about our easy solutions has merit. I used to give an example. Early in my career, in UU churches, we would do seders, always do seders. Until I ran into a Jewish person who took great offense that we were doing it. And I talked to them, and I haven't done one since. We have to be careful. He makes two more points. Let's review the first point. Religious pluralism is too easy and ill-considered. His second point, the ideology behind what the professor terms hyphenated religion is merely personal preference. That's the beginning and the end. That's a heavy charge. Third and last point, this results in mistaking the appearance of a religious act for the act itself. Then he ends his essay with some pointed questions about religious practices. And then I'm done quoting him. In what structure of authority have they become embedded? And in the service of what affirmation do they now stand? And will that authority still be obeyed? And will that affirmation still be made when the price of doing so is inconvenience? Monetary loss, personal anguish, persecution, or martyrdom? He answers them with his conclusion: hyphenated obedience is no obedience at all. Now, I like his metaphor because most of my adult life, my last name was hyphenated. Embracing our pluralistic religion was neither easy nor ill-considered for most of us. Often such a break with one's heritage stains or destroys family relations. It's fine, it's what we have to live with. Let me tell you a few of my own stories. When I decided to enter the Unitarian Universalist ministry, my father was shocked. And his first question, he wanted to know if the Unitarians were the Moonies. Okay. Then the second question, I grew up in the Episcopal Church. The second question, do Unitarians believe in the Trinity? So I had to give my dad this little lesson why we're called Unitarians, which we were given that title by the Orthodox. You see, we're one God, not Trinity, not three in one, but one. And that's the heresy. That's our heresy. That's why we exist today. It's where we come from. Then my cousin Trip, my oldest cousin. Yeah, my oldest cousin. And he called me up on the phone. I should tell a little background. The Trip went from working for the EPA as an attorney to getting in with the Colson born-again Christians. And not only that, but became lieutenant governor of North Carolina as a Republican. Sorry, that was a little too. Anyway, so he called me up on the phone and said, Don, I hear you're going to seminary. I said, yes, that's what I've decided to do. And I understand it's Unitarian Universalist religion. I said, yes, that's where I'm landing. I called you because I want to pray for your soul over the phone. I'm going to be honest, and don't be shocked, and I won't say it full, but I simply said, F you. Never spoken with him again. It's like I don't exist for him. And then my Aunt Jane, his mother, and this is the great story. So remember, I had double majors, African American history and comparative religion. Where do you get a real job? That stuff. Anyway, my favorite professor, Bruce Lawrence, was coming to Greensboro, and I was visiting with my relatives, my Aunt Jane and my Uncle Frank. And I was in seminary now. So it was all out of, my born again side of the family knew I was a Unitarian minister. Well, I wasn't yet, but was going to be. And so Bruce called because he was going to drive over from Durham and we could visit. And so he called to arrange that. And so my Aunt Jane, knowing who Bruce Lawrence was, and professor of religion at Duke University and a former Episcopal priest, blah, blah, blah. And she said on the phone to him, oh, he told me this, you've got to help Don. He questions the Trinity. And Bruce went, Trinity? Trinity? Who believes in the Trinity anymore? Of course, I would have to say the Episcopal Church is a few miles away from the fundamentalists. So I'm not alone in this, I understand. And so that's one of the things I think of when people say that our religion is too easy. Well, it's not really that easy to make these decisions and pay these prices. Furthermore, the challenges of such a religious life as ours are ongoing and changing over time, requiring energy, time, honesty, and study. To be sure, not everyone gives religion high priority. Just as there are shallow Christians and Hindus clinging to the obvious of their faith, there are shallow Unitarian Universalists rejoicing in their newfound freedom only and not the responsibility. With freedom comes responsibility. Something we're trying to relearn in this country, aren't we? Nonetheless, I propose that our way of doing religion is not easy. You are constantly building your own theology. And the church not only trusts for you to do that for yourself, but that's what we encourage. We're not going to do that across the street. This parable is from a Universalist, an old colleague has passed, Clinton Lee Scott. Some of you may recall that name. This is the parable. Now there was a certain man that for many years did frequent the temple on the Sabbath. Then did he cease to be found in the great congregation. And a neighbor inquired of him, saying, "How is it that you no more are seen in the temple on the Sabbath day?" And the man did give answer, I like not the words that the master speaks, for she puts not an end to the questions that vex my mind, neither provides me with sure salvation for my soul. Verily, she leads us into deep waters and leaves us there without means of rescue. Now, when this conversation was told to the master of the temple, she answered, saying, "Go tell him that remains away from the great congregation that the temple stands not to provide life preservers, but is a place where one learns how to swim." That's how we do religion. And we trust each other to do it. People say we answer to no higher authority than ourselves. This can be a superficial criticism. Our faith today, as diverse as it is firmly rooted in transcendentalism in the Protestant Reformation and grew further out of the shaping of theologians like Ralph Waldo Emerson of the 19th century and James Luther Adams of the 20th century. Emerson's heretical injunction, "Obey thyself," reads like theological narcissism, unless one believes, as Emerson preached, that God shows in the self, fortifies the self, admonishes and illuminates the self. Consider these words from his essay, The Oversoul, which was his term for God. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. Now you can look at that theologically. You can look at, I miss them really, those wonderful photographs and movies of space, of real space out there. We're all connected. Everyone, stardust in your hair. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, It is love. For those of us who can't go there, and there are many among us who have chosen the humanist path in our inclusive religion, I offer these words from the great American novelist, William Faulkner. Courage and honor and pride and pity and love, they all touch the heart. And what the heart holds to becomes true, as far as we know truth. As for our calling to be a people of hope and service to others, a modern affirmation is laid out by our own theologian, James Luther Adams, in his 5 Smooth Stones of Liberalism. He's talking about liberal religion. 1, and this is Emersonian, revelation is continuous. 2, all relations between persons ought to ideally rest on mutual, free consent and not on coercion. 3, there is a moral obligation to direct one's effort toward the establishment of a just and loving community. I mean, I know churches are kind of on the run now. We really are in this culture. But to me, it's always been the last chance for genuine community in this culture. It's really the last chance. 4, virtue is not immaculate. Rather, it requires social incarnation. That's hard for us. We're in our heads a lot. Gotta get your hands dirty. 5, resources, divine and human, are available for the achievement of meaningful change, justifying an attitude of ultimate optimism. Our religion as well, if it was so easy, but we have our martyrs. For Michael Servetus, dying at the stake with his heresy on the errors of the Trinity strapped to his thigh. To Joseph Priestley, who discovered oxygen and whose home and laboratory were torched by a mob angry at his Unitarian religion. And so he fled in fear of his life to America from Britain. To James Reed, who was killed by a baseball bat while in Selma, Alabama, marching with Dr. King in 1965. To the Unitarian Universalists killed in Florida some years ago, this is many years ago, really, while serving as an escort at a woman's pregnancy and abortion clinic. And one of my classmates at Star King was minister of the church then, of the person who was murdered, was a member. The list could go on, but that's enough for now. In the end, the professor and I do not agree. I do concede that any pluralistic solution to religion's diverse truths and texts may seem to some, if not to many, superficial or self-concerned. But this may be our greatest gift. This may be our greatest gift, as spoken by our own Francis David in 1568. And this is our origins I'm bringing up. You need not think alike to love alike. You know, if you tell me, explain your religion in 1 sentence, that's my sentence. Well, because, you know, we came out of the Christian Reformation. We were the liberal Christians right when the whole Protestant Reformation. And remember that the Protestants, as soon as they got established, they started killing people just like Catholics over the creeds. Remember Nicaea is when, never mind, I'll go on and on. The But that's what the old boys club, that's when they took the religion over. That was run by women. See, this is patriarchy. That's what Judaism, Christianity, Islam, it's part of the patriarchal rise. So you need not think alike to love alike. Or to borrow a title from a popular book, you don't have to be wrong for me to be right. That used to be the American creed, by the way, least we forget. What's wrong with us? Something's terribly wrong. Imagine such a world. Imagine just for a moment. You need not think alike to love alike. Yes, Professor, our religion is not an easy one. It is far from it. David.
Thank you, Reverend Don. Our closing hymn is going to be hymn number 121, verses 1 and 2. We'll build the land. This hymn will be recorded, and we are being led by our own Children's and Family Minister, Reverend Kim Miner. We will be back shortly.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Our closing words are from Sophia Line Paz, and in honor of Kim, if you don't know, Sophia Line Paz was very big in religious education for us. And I remember when I went before the fellowship committee, of course, she was in the 50s and stuff, and they would ask you who influences you, and don't tell us Sophia Line Paz. And then I told them I have nothing else to say. This is in the hymnal, by the way. It matters what we believe. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way to wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. The saved and the unsaved is what drove me out of the Episcopal Church. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Given where we are today, I'm going to repeat that, where sincere differences beautify the pattern. When I was in Mankato, Minnesota, went to this big gathering. It was interfaith, and it was at the most funky rabbi I've ever met in my life. And a Unitarian minister, when you go to town, you search out the rabbis. First thing you do, search out an ally. But and so it was very inclusive. The Muslims, the Sheiks, everybody was there. People of color. It's just, and what he said, and it was just beautiful. And he just got up and he said, "This is what America really looks like." White supremacy will not die hard, will not die easy. I mean, that's what we're facing. And some beliefs are like binders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Wow. Isn't that what we're facing now? And that we face in our lives all the time? We're too rigid. And the opportunities before us, we don't even see them. And they're our salvation. I do it all the time. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. It matters what we believe, and that's why we are here.
Oh, well, you're free to go, you're free to listen. I look out the window, I see blue skies. I look here, I see nothing but blue skies with smiling faces.